Well, all right, we are officially live on our platforms, and that's pretty cool. All right.
Am I centered?
We're all so very centered.
Okay.
I assumed I was centered.
Yeah, I told you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Good evening.
Ruben Bressler.
How you doing, friends?
I still can't tell which direction's which. Still causing problems for
Just do this. Just do the full hand fan and hope that it hits.
I'll do that. Yep. That sounds terrific. It's been a really interesting week in Magic. We've had all new previews from Dominaria, which is cool. For those who didn't want to go read the FAQ thing and have waited, I can imagine it's a pretty spectacular season so far.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I agree.
Yeah.
There's some hype. There's definitely some hype behind this set, even with the Gosh book leak. It's people are still very excited about Dominaria.
Oh,
we also have some new controversies this week, both in Magic and outside of Magic, so we'll chew on that a little bit later, too.
I can't wait to get to it. But we also start our program with the Trumpet Blasts. You can get one yourself if you support us at our highest level on Patreon. And here is the latest one. Coming to you in the flesh here at GP Seattle Magic Mike's members. Also, the PCG casting crew playing Legacy and taking names, Food Chain.
Nice.
That's right.
There we go.
Food Chain.
Paragon City.
That's right.
Paragon City Games shout out coming, so I'll get to see. I don't think that Jay is bringing his daughter, but you know, Jay Branderson.
I'm a big fan of his daughter.
Yeah, of course.
Like, he's nice. There are some people that I literally just follow because either their kids are cute or their cats are cute. Like, they're nice people, but anytime they
go where
tweet,
I thought it was going to go. I thought that was going to be a different thing.
But if they tweet, it's like the teacher from Peanuts, like wah 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 wah, and like the baby comes up, and I'm listening. Any other time, it's just wah wah.
And it's like Bob Ross, wah wah, block, block. No,
ooh, I don't know.
It's weird. Okay.
I don't need that kind of negativity in my life.
Well, that said, we're going to start with our giveaway. This week's giveaway, courtesy of CoolStuffInc.com, is a copy of Dual Decks, Elves versus Inventors. Which just so happens to be coming out the exact same day that the Challenger decks are coming out.
Right.
Wizards, we could have timed this better, okay? Just going to say that. Just going to let you know. You know, just saying we could have done that better.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Dual Deck, we're going to put the link in the chat. It's never going to work on YouTube because it never, ever does. But it'll work on Twitch, and Ruben will do the magic for the YouTubes.
I will do my best.
And because we are in the midst of Dominaria previews, it's a Dominaria preview time right here.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for this card.
And it's great because it's a rare, and they didn't spoil it. Yay!
Yeah. So I got asked, I went out to dinner with Gavin. I'm staying with Gavin Verhey, magic designer. And we went out to dinner the night after we came in, and someone said, "So you have a preview card, right?" And I said, "Yes." Is it a Timmy, a Johnny, a Spike, or a Vorthos card? What would you say it was? And I could not answer that question because it is all four.
Oh, okay.
It's every single.
I don't know if I would call it a Spike card.
It's seen tournament play before.
It has seen tournament play.
It's been printed before.
Yeah,
it's true. So what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is a reprint coming back to Dominaria, a set about history. I'll be honest, to me, and I read this online, I think it was on Reddit, where somebody said, this is Legends if they knew what they were doing back when they made Legends. You know what I mean?
Hello.
Like the set, I mean, you know, seriously, they had no idea what they were doing. I mean, luckily, they didn't screw anything up that badly, but, you know, they didn't really know what was going on. Now we have modern design and whatnot, and we have this world building and all these planeswalkers and stuff. We have all of those pieces to put together, and the set's incredible. But for our preview, I'll just read the flavor text before we get to it here. It's from our friend Karn. The perfection of the Lotus reminds me of my hopes for this world, and my failures. I will not rest until I've atoned for them. Ladies and gentlemen, the card coming back to Dominaria as a rare is Gilded Lotus.
Look at that beautiful piece of art that they got. Brand new art for Gilded Lotus. Brand new text, by the way. None of that mana pool garbage anymore. Tap, add 3 mana of any color.
That's right. That's all it's doing. It's not. There's no pools going on here. You're not splashing. It's add 3 mana of any one color.
Yep.
And
it's been printed 3 times already. This will be the 4th time.
Wow.
And Volkan Baga adding another notch on the bedpost for vintage artist constructed. Just a beautiful piece of art here. A little background that I learned from Gavin was that they knew they were going to put a Mox in the set, and they have Mox Amber, and they knew they were going to put a Lotus in the set, and now we know that it's Gilded Lotus, or a Lotus in the set, and now they know it's going to be Gilded Lotus. When they started designing the set, they only knew that there was going to be a Mox and a Lotus of one kind or another, so they commissioned new art just in case. It turns out they went with Gilded Lotus, but that's sort of the background reason why there is this beautiful new art.
Yeah, it is terrific, and I certainly appreciate Wizards giving us this awesome preview. Thank you so much, Wizards. It was
Absolutely.
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Considering how this preview season has been an awkward one, a really awkward one, and it kind of blows my mind for the people who are like, they totally meant to release the FAQ. Like, they didn't. Why would you ever be like, I want all the good, all the crazy mythics and rares and the mechanics to everybody all at once? That's, anyway.
Well, even recently, I feel bad for the creators that were affected by the WPN. Apparently, there was an announcement that was released yesterday that was not supposed to be, that had at least 2 preview cards in that article before it was yanked. I think one of them was Magic Man Sam, who was like, well, I was working on a video, but my card got leaked, and so do I still make the video or not? And we were like, of course you make the video. We love everything you do. And so I believe he went ahead with it. But I feel bad for those guys that were affected by that leak, and that it still continues to happen is frustrating.
Yeah, there was a bit of awkwardness when Gathering Magic's preview this go around was Karn, Scion of Urza, and it was spoiled the day before by a WPN article, so that kind of got weird. So we published those articles at 8 o'clock at night, so woo! But there are 2 awesome articles on Gathering Magic. One from Mr. Jeff Hoagland about constructed applications, and another about Karn and his awesome story and the lore and how it kind of came to be and why he is the way he is. It's absolutely terrific. Okay, so our first pick is, of course, the Gilded Lotus. We move here to gather the townsfolk, and we're going to talk about a few cards this go around, not a whole bunch. Now, we have a whole set review coming, thanks to our amazing Kickstarter backers, and that's incredible.
Thank you so much, and we will be going very in-depth with all of that, to be sure.
Oh, yeah. Evan gave me the schedule the other day. Like, I've never done a set review before, specifically one with him. And I was like, how long is this going to take? And I didn't mean that in a disgruntled way, but just for my own information.
I got stuff to do.
Yeah, Ruben has his schedule. He has assistants, whatever. But so Evan was like, oh, yeah, we're going to get started at this early in the morning, and there's going to be lunch. And I was like, oh, and we're going to get done after lunch. He's like, nope, there's going to be dinner. And I'm like, oh.
You're gonna be at it all day. This is gonna be
a shoot. Like, we're gonna be recording, and I'm so excited.
So stay hydrated. Make sure we got a lot of rest. Get all print proper. It's gonna be fan-freaking-tastic. All right. So that said, there's a few cards that got spoiled over this past week. And Ruben, can you tell us a little bit about Dauntless Bodyguard as to get us off?
So one of the cards I'm most excited about as a aggressive mage is always when they print 1 mana 2/1s. Anytime there's a standard set that has 1 mana 2/1s in it, they don't print a ton of them, so you know that when they do, the strength of aggro decks are going to be partially beholden to that. When Tormented Hero was printed back in Theros, people were like, oh, black could be great now with all these 2. They also had Gnarled Scarhide, but neither of those really made a splash. But historically, 1 mana 2/1s, things like Jackal Pup and Kithian, Savannah Lions, all the way through history, the aggro decks have been really dependent upon 2-power 2/1s, and Dauntless Bodyguard is one of the best.
So what does it do?
Yeah, so Dauntless Bodyguard is a white mana for a 2/1 human knight. It's an uncommon in Dominaria. Notably, this is the first 1 mana 2-power knight in the history of Magic. So it's a human knight. As it enters the battlefield, choose another creature you control. Sacrifice Dauntless Bodyguard. The chosen creature gains indestructible until end of turn. This is pretty exciting. I mean, this is a very powerful effect. They're very afraid to give this type of effect to 1 mana creatures anymore, what with the history being, Mother of Runes, Benevolent Bodyguard. Apparently they were thinking about looking at putting back into a core set, and then they tested it and realized that it was just bananas. It is a 2/1 early. before you have anything else on the board. And if you draw one later, it can protect your more important threats or something, whatever the best thing on the board is. Oh, by the way, it's a knight. We have all of the new knight cards. It can protect a Thalia in whatever, in Modern, or you can Violet into play, which is also kind of exciting. Just a very good, aggressive 2/1 in 1 for 1.
I mean, it's sweet. It has like a weird drawback sort of built in that you don't really want to play it on turn 1 if you can help
it. It does have that tricky, like Direfleet Daredevil is like, oh, do I play my Direfleet Daredevil on turn 2 just as a 2/1? I mean, the answer is yes. You just always play it if that's like your option. You're always going to play this on 2/1 on turn 1. But it's nice to have that utility of being able to do something else with it later on. And multiples are also great. But it's going to be a little bit of a nightmare on MTGO if you play a turn 1 Bodyguard, turn 2 Bodyguard, and you forget which one's which. That'll be a little bit awkward. But this card's just so good.
So so our next card here is more of an Aaron Campbell joint, if you will. Of the cards we're talking about, feels pretty Aaron-y. The last one does as well. Aaron, can you tell us what Yawgmoth's Vile Offering does?
Yeah.
By the way, Gilded Lotus already up on Mythic Spoiler. Good job being on top of your game.
Good job, guys. 10 minutes.
Good job. So Yawgmoth's Vile Offering is the black card from the cycle of cards. There's these legendary sorceries. The white one is Urza's Ruinous Blast. The blue one is Karn's Temporal Sundering. Red is Jaya's Immolating Inferno. And green is Kamal's Druidic Vows. This is the black card in that cycle. It's 4 and a black. It's a legendary sorcery, meaning that you have to have a legendary creature or planeswalker in play to even cast it. You can put up to 1 target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker, and then exile Yawgmoth's Vile Offering. So there's a couple of interesting things about this card. Number 1, the destroy happens regardless. So at the very least, you can just use it to destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. You can put up to 1 target creature or planeswalker from a graveyard on the battlefield. The only other card that allowed you to bring a planeswalker back was Obzadot's Aid back from Return to Ravnica blocks. This is a really big deal, but being able to combine the two is really, really powerful. This is a very important moment in the story where Hannah had died from the Phyrexian oil, and Yawgmoth offered Gerard the chance to bring her back if he would give him Urza's head. And you can see if you look very closely, you can see Gerard holding the head of Urza. And I believe Gerard...
spoiler alert, he doesn't actually do it and actually stabs fake Hannah, because it's not actually Hannah. And gets Yawgmoth where he lives, which is nice.
Yeah, this is a really pivotal moment. Noah Bradley in particular has really been shining in this expansion. There have been some really amazing pieces by him, and this is very creepy. And it's creepy, but then you see the glimmer of like the white mummified Hannah in the middle, and this is just amazing. There are prints and playmats being offered, and I'm not 100% sold on this card just yet, only because it feels like a lot of work to get it to happen. But I have a feeling I might be eating my words, so I'm staying open to the idea that I might be wrong.
This is also the first time. This is the first time that Yawgmoth has appeared on a card, as technically that white spot in the middle that looks like a human being is Yawgmoth in disguise. And there's obviously everything that surrounds this scene as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Noah Bradley has just, I mean, he said he was excited for Dominaria. He was ready for Dominaria, but my God, he has just absolutely killed it. I mean, from the clouds in the sky, I have the high-res version on screen if you're watching the video, and from the dead body with the blood hanging out and the head by the hair and the axe, and it just, I mean, it looks absolutely incredible. So like they did a great job just making this thing absolutely awesome, and Noah should be very, very proud, because my God, he killed it. And that was awesome. The last card we're going to talk about here is a little bit of weirdo. He's the ship weirdo, okay?
But it has won people's hearts. Like, this card became instantly beloved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man. So it certainly has, because Slimefoot the Stowaway is a green, black, and a colorless, or green, black, and a generic mana for a 2/3 legendary fungus. It's an uncommon. And whenever a sapperling you control dies, Slimefoot the Stowaway deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. 4 generic mana : create a 1/1 green sapperling creature token. So This is like the guy that like cleans up stuff. You know, the fun guy. They eat or they tidy away. And ultimately, this just looks absolutely amazing in Commander. This looks like the funnest Commander thing ever. This is like brawl. Brawl. If you wanted to brawl, you can start right here. Yeah. And the fact that Gilded Lotus is back is also awesome for Brawl.
Mike Linneman wrote an article on Gathering Magic today, specifically for people who like their commander on a budget. He came up with a 1DH version where every card in the deck costs no more than $1, I believe. And so that's a really great start for someone like me who appreciates affordable EDH. But I fell in love with this card the second I saw it, and I wasn't alone. Like, social media blew up, and people demanded to know more about the character. They wanted to know the background, you know, how they should refer to it, because it's a fungus basically. But there was a lot of curiosity around this card, and everybody just agrees. Like, there was the meme going around of the distracted boyfriend where it was like, on the one hand you had all of the sagas, and then you had like the fan base, and then the girl walking away was Slimefoot, where people were like, yeah, that's nice, Slimefoot. Yeah, it's all about Slimefoot, and I think it's excellent.
Oh man, that is terrific.
We've got two separate creatures in Standard that make a sapperling at the beginning of each player's upkeep. So we've got Tenderfoot Dryad and Verdant Force. And so Slimefoot dealing damage is relevant if you give it Infect. Yeah. That's kind of cool. Goes infinite in a number of different ways. The one that I've seen the most often is Ashnod's Altar and Parallel Lives. It goes infinite, so that's a cool one. Yeah, and I was considering making a 1D cosplay, the equivalent of the 1DH with Slimefoot, where I was going to buy a trash can lid, like one of those green trash can lids, or maybe like the circular sled, you know what I'm talking about, like the disc sled, and strap that to my head, buy a mop, get the mop as my facial hair, right, as my you know, facial accoutrement, and then walk around with the staff, and then get a brown bathrobe, and that was going to be my cosplay for the weekend. Because if you're going to make a budget garbage cosplay, it should probably be for Slimefoot the Stowaway.
I have to say, the one card that won my heart more than any other is Muldrotha the Gravetide.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And she's like Multani's child, and I was just like, oh my god, Multani! And just the fact that the flavor text gets me right in the feels. She's 3, a green, a blue, and a black. She's Sultai, legendary creature, elemental avatar. During each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard. And it's not hard to get things in your graveyard if you're playing those colors. So play a land, play an artifact, play a creature, yes. And then the flavor text where he says, my child grew from rotten ruin, and yet she bloomed. And it's like, yes, queen! And she's just everything. And my friend Tyler and I, the minute we saw this, we were like, we're brewing! Yeah. This is another commander. If I ever do Brawl, I'm going to start with her, because there's some broken things you can do there.
That is sweet. So, all right, so we got to move past the cards. We'll be talking to all the cards in the set review. That's coming in about a week and a half. But controversy erupted this week. And man, don't we love some controversy.
Sure do.
Alex Ullman, the purveyor of all things Pauper, noted that it was kind of scummy that the finals of the MTG Pauper Challenge ended with the winner ghosting well-known streamer Michael Jacob, where the person says, yep, definitely did. If you want to show your hand, I won't stop you. Upon which time, everyone lost their minds. And there was a terrific video by Marshall Sutcliffe where he talked about sort of his MTG breakdown, where he talks about the pros and cons. So I don't want to go too far into that. Feel free to go check out his video, because he does present side A and B, and obviously I'll surmise those. But anyway, there's a few ways to feel about this, and here's the way I would frame it. Here's the way I would explain it. The difference between morals and ethics. So if you don't know the difference between morals and ethics, moral comes from the inside. Ethics comes from the outside. So how you feel about it is the moral quandary, and if you could get in trouble for it, that's the ethical problem. So there's no real ethical question being provided here, because there's no penalty whatsoever for doing it. So it's not an ethical question. This is not an ethical question right now. Now, if Wizards creates rules and says this is not okay, which I think they should totally do, but whatever, then that's different. But right now, it's just a moral quandary, to which I say it is a bad thing, that you should not do this. This is cheating. It's just straightforward cheating. And if you're going to compete for prizes, for things that you get to get, for prizes you get to earn, you wouldn't want them to do the same to you, and you shouldn't do the same to them. And there was a part where, you know, Marshall Sutcliffe actually spoke to the winner of the Pauper Challenge who was doing this, and noted, I think he said something like, you know, if there had been rules preventing this, I wouldn't have done this. You know, so this is the spike taken all the way to the extreme. This is the win at any cost. This is the, well, you gave me this information, I'm going to take this information and run with it. That's a way to look at that, and that's a way to behave. I personally cannot do that because I feel like it violates essentially the sanctity of the match, I guess is the way to put it, you know, not to be too, you know, grandiose about it, but, you know, the idea that, you know, you're playing a game honest, and I just can't imagine a world where you say that is an honest thing to do.
Yeah, this wasn't the first time this happened either. I was watching Michael's matches in between your matches, Evan, because you were doing the Patreon stream, and there was at least one other opponent that was caught sitting in his chat and just being very bold about it, having the same username. There was no doubt that it was this person, and so this happened at least twice, and Michael was still able to, you know, make it all the way to the finals, and that's fantastic. But, you know, this started off as being, in my mind, a very clean-cut discussion, and then there were several angles brought up that I thought were very interesting. Somebody brought up the angle of privacy and consent, and one of the counter arguments was, well, you know, your opponent doesn't necessarily consent to being streamed and having their play and their deck and everything else be critiqued, and so, you know, is that fair to them that they're essentially being broadcast against sort of their will? And so that was an interesting take on that I think is valid. I don't know how much weight is behind it, but I think that was something that certainly added to the discussion. I found it frustrating how many people were defending the ghoster and doing a lot of victim blaming, for lack of a better word, saying, well, if Michael's going to stream, he should have covered up his hand. And I always get very frustrated when I see people expecting victims to be the bigger person, when in my mind that we should be keeping it on the perpetrator. The person did something wrong. If Ruben leaves his car open, and someone steals his car, you can say to Ruben, well, why didn't you just lock your car? Why don't you say to the thief, why don't you just not steal cars? Like, that should be where the conversation starts and ends. You know, Ruben should be able to paint his car neon pink and spray paint "Steal Me" on the side, and someone is still not allowed to steal it. People should not, that shouldn't change anything. And it was really frustrating to see, well, if you had just done this, or you could just not ghost. How about that? And I feel like the conversation should have started and ended with the person who did it, not with Michael, not with the people in his chat. It was really frustrating seeing people constantly bring it back. Well, if Michael had just, how about you just don't do it? End of story.
It is a very rare circumstance in which I have nothing good to add. You both covered all the bases for me. Typically, that's weird, but apparently my co-hosts are right, and I love them. So the only thing I have to add is that Michael Jacob, the Darkest Mage, is the godfather of Magic streaming. He's the guy, and he's been on the top of the game for a decade. He is the person. And so on the one hand, I'm like, you can be ghosting and still probably lose to Michael Jacob.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I'm sure he's been ghosted before, and the person ghosting has not been so brazen. And that is a thing that I'm not a big fan of. And the last point is, how would you possibly police this? There's no punishment I can think of. There's no way to go about punishing this. And so the solution going forward, if this is an issue, is probably to do what poker streamers do, which is put your stream on a delay. Yeah. I know there's a lot of folks who just put their streams on delays for whatever reason. There's a funny clip going around of a Twitch streamer who accidentally put his beta key on his stream, and so had to race his own. He had to race his own stream to capitalize on his own beta key before his chat could type it in, which I thought was hilarious. Poker streamers regularly put their streams on a half-hour delay, or even longer in some cases, because they're streaming so much. It's so much money at that point, and once the stakes get that high, it's worth considering. But to go back to the initial argument, it's a theoretical discussion more than it'll be anything in real life. Obviously, it's a bad thing to do, and y'all shouldn't do it. But there are, is it worse that he came out and said, yes, I'm doing it? Or would you rather these people stay in the shadows and just ghost without telling us? It did bring the argument to the fore, which is interesting.
To talk about the idea of delay will kill your stream. People don't necessarily like watching delays. You have to be a huge streamer for people to not just tune right out immediately, because it's part of streaming is the interaction. Part of streaming is having a shared experience. And when you're having one 5 minutes in the future, that's not really sharing much of anything. That's broadcasting a thing, and that's fine. But you know, for me, again, this is one of those things where it's like I can't imagine that it's supposed to be right to do this and okay to do this, because this is a win at any cost. This is greatness at any cost. You don't care if if you had to stab, oh well, they said if I stabbed my mama I'd win the tournament. So like, well, here we go. It's mama stabbing time. I mean, it's like there's things I just feel you can't do or shouldn't do. And again, that's the moral part of it. That said, so ghosting is interesting, and there's that whole privacy thing. And real quick on that, and I don't expect this to ever happen, certainly because Magic Online isn't the fastest programmed update. But here's a potential solution to that angle of the issue. If you auto-include, like auto-checkmark and say, I'm okay with being streamed, okay? There's a little checkbox in the options, and it says, I'm okay being streamed. And there's another box right there that says, I'm a streamer. And if those boxes are checked, then you are eligible to be paired up with someone in a league if they're a streamer. And, if one of those boxes, the one that says you're okay with it. And if you're not, then you're not. Unless absolutely necessary, they won't pair you unless you're like in the finals or something and you can't avoid it. That is a way around it. I don't think it's a perfect solution, but it's a way to get past that issue, that part of it, because I don't want that angle to be part of the for me the issue is straightforward. Is it cheating? Not am I violating your privacy by putting you on a stream? I just don't want that to be part of it. But again, I'm not sure, knowing Wizards, knowing McGo, knowing the slow development cycle, it's not going to be at the top of the priority list to make that happen.
And real quick, Marshall Sutcliffe is just killing it with those like short little 10-minute here's the issue of the week breakdown videos. The last 2 weeks he's just absolutely put the entire argument together for me, and like it's a very impressive project, so hopefully he keeps that up as well.
He does a great job. So we're going to move on here to an article written by Collins Mullen called Prepare to Die. First of all, Aaron
kind of hates this article, I think.
Aaron is absolutely astounded that there were 1,700 words written about rolling dice and choosing who goes first.
I love this article.
It's really impressive. And let me surmise the TLDRs, okay? The TLDRs is that we have created the perfect way of finding out who goes first. And this is the perfect way. You get a D6, I get a D6, and we choose odd or even, and we roll at the same time. And that's it. There's no shenanigans. There's no shortcuts. That's as good and as random as you're ever going to get it.
Now, see, you could have fit that on a pamphlet. Why did you need 1,700 words?
You have to defend your argument, Aaron. There's the Socratic method to think about here. We have to convince people. We have to fight against decades. We have to fight against the tradition of the high roll on a D20. I think it's a really well-written article. It makes a lot of good sense. Also, TLDR in this case stands for too long die roll.
Wow. Well, I mean, part of it is because we're Magic players. Because if I were just to say, hey, this is the way you should do this from now on, you'd be like, well, but dude, I like to derp, and I like to throw, and I like to do odd or even, and I like to go pipe, rock, or scissors. Like, no, man. This is the best way. It gives both players agency and creates a random result.
Now, the other argument that has always been out there is, why isn't this just put on the pairings sheet? Why isn't it just something randomized by Wur or Walter? It says, this is who you're playing against. This is the player who goes first. It would get rid of all of the other garbage RNG and the possibility of futzing with the rolls, wasting time with the die rolls. I think that makes a lot of sense to me as well. But it does put another thing in charge of the computer,
Right, which we don't necessarily want to go to.
I have to say, my favorite way is when people have the they were from the unsets, so they'll have like the rock lobster. I enjoy that. Every once in a while, I'll get that one opponent who's like, pick a card, and I'll be like, okay, and I'll be like, oh, I had the paper tiger. It's like, that's cool. I think that's great.
That's how my buddy John Kohler used to do the die rolls in our Vampire the Masquerade game.
Have you ever thrown chops?
Chops. That's how he used to do chops.
Nice. Well, this next topic I wanted to touch on because I want to know that if anybody out there happens to be working at Wizards and happens to be listening to this, I want you to know something. you screwed up again with Masters 25. I want you to know this. I want you to be aware of this. I want you to note that Masters 25 was not as bad as Iconic Masters. And for what it's worth, I think the set is actually okay. It's okay. Yeah. All right? But your problem is you have created 2 situations in a row where these master sets have lost value quickly, have created problems. Well, first of all, ending with Plague Wind and Tree of Redemption. Monster mistake. All of a sudden, Rudy makes this video about this duplication crap. Didn't need it. Really didn't need that negativity kind of leading itself into the release. And, you know, and lastly, essentially the price is going down that much further. And, you know, again, this happened right now. You can get a box of Iconic Masters for $140 shipped. That's ridiculous. You can get a box of Modern Masters 25 for $155 shipped. This is supposed to be a $240 product. So, yeah. Wizards, you have a serious confidence problem going into this fall. If you think you're going to make another master set, everyone's scared to death. Congratulations. You've pissed off every game store owner and or outlet because they're not going to want to go that far into a master set in the future. Fool me once, you know, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you, because guys, this set was going to be ridiculous and calculating values based on what their current, you know, what their scarcity is instead of what their actual market value is when you have a supply of them. Same thing that happened with Mana Drain. Same thing happened here with Imperial Recruiter. It's a problem. It's a serious problem, and this is the brass tacks of business for Wizards. Y'all going to have some serious concerns in the fall if you're going to try to run back yet another master set. It's a thing, and I want to make sure that's clearly noted.
So let me ask you this, because I'm not finance girl, so I don't know a lot about this. And so if they were to try to do that, what would they need to do differently? Like, what if you could sum it up very quickly, like what could fix this?
Well, stronger card choices. At the end of the day, stronger. Like Modern Masters 2017 is nuts. That set was insane because
so it was juiced.
Yeah, it was juice. You gotta bring back the juice. And first of all, however you're calculating the value, the expected value of your sets is wrong. Okay. It's wrong. They need to go back, whatever values they're calculating, do something different, because putting in Fetch Lands and Liliana and Snapcaster is far different than putting in an Imperial Recruiter and Richardon Port. It's sure. Miles apart. One of these things has a better value. So even if they do juice it, for what it's worth, I fully expect there to be for shops to be very, very scared of sort of buying in to whatever Master says next. I don't care if they held it till next year. I think you've spooked them really bad. And we've spooked it twice in a row, and it's not Iconic Masters bad, but it's still bad, and I hope they improve in the future. So,
I think the other thing that can be improved is having a variable price point. They locked themselves into this like $10 a pack thing when no one would be complaining about M25 if it was $7.50 a pack. I don't think.
Well, I mean, again, you know,
just make them twice as expensive instead of 2.5x or whatever, and you solve a lot of the problems. I agree that it comes down to the card choices, but you know, you can have a set that has Imperial Recruiter as one of the chase mythics, and then you have Richardon Port, which has which is a chase rare that people need many more copies of. Like the world needs more copies of Richardon Port than it needs Imperial Recruiter. But the reason why those Modern Master sets stay so popular is because everybody needs Tarmogoyfs, everybody needs Dark Confidants. And so once Liliana of the Veil comes around and Fetch Lands come around, you know, cards like that everyone needs lots of copies of, you know, once Kolaghan's Command gets its day in the sun and Snapcaster Mage, those are going to be the ones that people are very excited about, and not the Mana Drains and not the Imperial Recruiters, and not the, you know, the ones that haven't been printed yet, like Imperial Seal and Grim Tutor. Like those are going to be cool reprints, but you need to include that stuff that lots of people need many copies of as well.
Well, you can't calculate that those cards are going to be worth in the Master Set what they're worth today. Can't do that.
Right.
Second
because Imperial Recruiter is a $250 card or a $30 card hiding behind a $250 price tag.
Sure. So in the second part here, and I want to be real clear with this, okay? Don't make so much.
Yeah.
I'm serious. That's actually a thing. If you print too much, you want to have a little scarcity. You want to have a little like, oh, I don't want to miss out. I want to have some of that. Or, you know, you sell out. Like that's a good thing. Maybe pull that line back a little bit, because, you know, there's lots out there available. And you know, if the set were stronger and they made less of it, they would have a better result. And I'm very very interested in seeing what happens this fall if they decide to try to run back 2 master sets again per year after really stumbling out of the gate and then kind of falling on their face with the next one. All right, so moving on, there was a post by Andrew Weisel, I think is the way to say this, underscore Sev8 on Twitter, that said they really dislike the idea that Dominaria is Magic's home and that all the marketing that is pushing this idea makes me uncomfortable. There hasn't been a set on Dominaria in 11 years for a huge swath of players. Dominaria is just this weird thing old people talk about. He kind of goes on a little bit saying to, you know, I think it's a huge disservice to the works that have been done on all the other worlds, because you can't, now the other worlds aren't home, but this is supposed to be home. The point of Magic and Planeswalkers is that you can go to wherever you want, go all these crazy, you know, wonderful places or whatever. To assert that one of them is home undercuts this. And, you know, he goes on a little bit about, you know, well, if you've never been to Dominaria, if you've never played a set that's based in Dominaria, what does that have to do with anything? Well, earlier when I said this was like Legends if they knew what they were doing, this is also Time Spiral if they knew what they were doing. Time Spiral went too deep into the in-jokes. Like, you had to be a serious, hardcore player for a long time to get every single thing that Time Spiral was doing. Whereas Dominaria is the opposite. They're sweet cards, but you don't need to know every single little thing about them. You know, who cares if you don't understand exactly what's going on in, you know, the history of Benalia, or if you know who Gerard Cabochon even is. Like, you know, the new Memorial land that came out today that makes soldiers, that's a cool land that makes soldiers. Now, whoever's on the statue, I don't care, but if you do care, and if you do know, that's fantastic. And secondly, for me, the welcome home part is that you start somewhere. You gotta start somewhere. And Magic started in Dominaria. And Magic, everything that we know about Magic has grown from that singular point. So, you know, if you grow up, essentially, in a place, and yes, you go different places. Yes, you go to different lands, you know, you go to different cities, whatever. Home is home. And for, a lot of old school players, this is going to bring out a ton of awesome nostalgia. And for new players, it's just a really sweet set with some awesome cards in it.
And a new world to explore for them.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't feel as strongly about it as Andrew did, but I can certainly relate to kind of the feeling of like that message kind of being not ringing true for me. You know, I wasn't around. I took about a 10-year break from Magic, and even when I was playing as a teenager, I wasn't playing competitively or playing seriously. You know, I had cards. You know, I had my little my 4th edition starter packs and things like that, but I didn't really know what I was doing. You know, but if you ask me, home is Ravnica. You know, I enjoy those are the sets that I enjoy. Those are the blocks that I enjoy. This set is cute. But it's like, you know, I don't have the, it's almost like there's this feeling of people telling you should care about this and or you should feel this way. And it's like, well, I don't, you know, and I'm glad that people do. And I don't want them to stop feeling that way. I think both things can be true. But, you know, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel some of the things that Andrew did too, of like, you know, welcome home. And I'm like, I'm just visiting, like, you know, like this is all nice and stuff. It's like staying in a hotel. It's a comfy bed, but I'm leaving in the morning. Like, we're not. This isn't my home.
Right. It's like I like being at my friend's house, but I never really feel comfortable in their bathroom.
Absolutely.
Like, it's a little bit weird like that. By the way, if you're not following Sev, Andrew Weisel _SEV8, it's like one of the highest value Twitter followers you can have in Magic. He also does the Sarpadian Empires Volume 8. Tumblr, and so he has a lot of great content in there, and I can understand him, but I also think that this is less of a we shouldn't identify this as home and more of a Wizards problem of we should have come back to Dominaria sooner.
There we go.
Which I am super open to. Like, I think that I would be happy with every 4th set, like one set every year is a Dominaria set. Like, we can, you know, for some people Ravnica's home, for some people Innistrad is home, for some people Mirrodin is home, for some people the Wrath plane is home. You know, there's you know, less people are identifying with, let's say, Mercadian masks, but you know what? Some people are like, hey, Mercadia's cool. Not as many of them anymore. But
which is also in Dominaria, but you know, regardless.
Mercadia's not Dominaria.
Wasn't Mercadia Dominaria?
Mercadia is its own plane, bro. No, so the way that block worked was super strange. This was before we did stuff. Mercadia was its own plane, then Nemesis was on Wrath, and Prophecy was on Dominaria.
Because that's when Wrath actually came into Dominaria. Wrath merged.
But Mercadia is its own place, which is why Squee got to be the Goblin Nabob on the Upside Down Mountain Peak. Look, you have to go follow some Vorthos people like Sev to get in on that one. But yeah, that one. The story didn't hang together too great.
I mean, ultimately, the way that I would note it is that, you know, somebody who works and looks at and studies marketing, it's a marketing tactic. It is a straightforward nostalgia. It's pulling back those old players, the old and franchise players. Like, hey, you remember Sarah Angel? We put Sarah Angel in the set. You know, you remember Benalia? Everything's going on about Benalia. These cards are super cool, and it adds a little bit of new flavor because you got the Bells and Knock stuff or whatever, Bells and Lock, because you got the Liliana.
Who's always been the bad guy and has never had a card.
Yeah. So this guy, awesome. so that brings sort of part of the newness of it. So for me, it's a marketing thing, and I don't think anyone's feelings should really get hurt here beyond other than, like, you know, Magic started here, so let's just call it home, and that's just kind of what it is. All right, so we'll move on here to Desperate Ravings, where copyright claims showed up on Saffron Olive's MTG Arena stuff, because it turns out the little star icon, when you grow sort of up the levels of difficulty or whatever, every time you get a win, you get that little bar meter going. That little circle star thing just also happens to be similar to another copyright holder called GameStar, who has a circle and a star. And apparently from that circle and the star showing up at, you know, an hour in or whatever, that was enough for a copyright claim. So Wizards is on that, but a lot of YouTubers, and myself included, honestly, because I streamed some Arena as well, you know, could get nailed with that stuff. And copyright claims are just dumb and annoying and problematic at best.
How in the world are you going to claim that as a copyright? A circle with a star? Boy, wait till Captain America gets a load of this one. How in the world are you going to make that a copyright claim? This is my first time actually looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so that was just a weird sort of kind of oddity that showed up out of streaming MTG Arena. That I felt was worth mentioning.
Well, that seems horrendously stupid to me.
It's pretty dumb on the dumb scale.
But you know what? It's a subsidiary of Hasbro. You got to take everything seriously. But like, that's a pretty stupid one.
That's a bad one. But next up is our friend Magic Man Sam, old Ristic Studies, came out with a new video this week on the art of Seb McKinnon, and as usual, killed it. Dude, did an amazing job.
He's so good. I don't know how it's possible for one person to be so good at this, but he did. Yeah, this video in particular, because Seb has film history, he made short films with his brother before his brother passed away, and he used a lot of Seb's music and a lot of Seb's art direction and film in the making of this video, and they all tie together in this really just gorgeous piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he absolutely did a great job there. So congrats, Magic Man Sam, on another awesome outing. Way to go. Go check that out.
Unbelievable. Every single thing he produces is just aces.
It is terrific. And moving on here to Going Infinite, we're going to talk about some ideas, some crazy stuff out there. One, Mr. Lubufu, who is a friend of the show. Lucas.
One of our mods.
Absolutely, one of our mods here. Thank you very much.
Also the creator of Magic the Chevening. So if you're into cooking, if you want to learn how to cook, and you want to make Magic themed items, you should go check out his new video series. It is delightful.
Very nice. Well, I believe it's Lucas Buka Fusca. Is that right? I feel like I'm screwing that up because I'm Southern and I screw it up all the time. But Mr. Lubufu, if you will, wrote a terrific article this week on cardsphere.com, where he talks about data mining to access the Magic the Gathering Arena economy. And he essentially compares Hearthstone to Magic the Gathering Arena. There's a lot of differences in there. There's no dusting. There's only so many packs and things you can get per week. And you kind of break some of that stuff down, sort of how much dust you can get per week and how much dust it takes for a cheap deck, a medium deck, or an expensive deck. I guess sort of the way to boil it down is essentially says if you want to play a cheap deck in Hearthstone, it's going to take you about a month to get there. You know, to build the whole deck. For a medium sort of decent deck, it's going to be about 7 weeks. And for an expensive deck, you're looking at 18 to 19 weeks. And by that point, you probably have a new set, which means at that point, you're behind and you're losing. So that's where he came up with on Hearthstone. And then for Magic, it essentially boiled down to, again, using current economy setup, that to build white-black vampires, which is relatively short, or relatively cheap and accessible, it's going to take about 9.5 weeks. For the mid-range mono-red aggro, which is about in the middle of the cost range, it's going to be about 20 weeks. And for blue-black mid-range and the real expensive stuff, it's going to be about 22.5 weeks. So
that's almost half. That's half a year.
That's a long time. So you're not going to be able to keep up in any fashion, at least based on his work and his efforts.
Right now, there was I mean, there have been a couple of articles written about the arena economy in the past, and I wanted to reference something from my buddy John Wells, who wrote something a couple weeks ago about how the economy right now is valuing people who show up every day rather than people who grind. So if you look at like a bar graph or a line graph of Hearthstone per game played, it like stays relatively constant. Whereas after the 4th game of Magic on Magic Arena every day, it flattens out. Like your reward is almost negligible once you get to your 4th win per day. So they're valuing people who show up daily. And that's why it's taking so long to build these super competitive decks. To be fair, everyone has this restrictor plate, right? Everyone has to follow the same restriction. Mm-hmm. And so you're not going to play against fully powered Scarab God, God Pharaoh's Gift control or combo in your arena games. You're going to be playing against everybody who's trying to grind towards the Merfolk deck or grind towards the Vampires deck or play, whatever random red cards they happen to be laying around for their mono red aggro deck. So everyone is a little bit hamstrung by the economy. That isn't to say that it's perfect, but there's no villain that you have to pair yourself up against here.
Speaking of mapping and predicting things, did you guys see this article? I think it was a forum post where somebody had determined the sweet spot in terms of how many lands you should be running. That I think it was 22 if you're an aggro deck and 26 if you're a control deck, and that if you pick anything in the middle, it like throws off the equation somehow. Like that was fascinating.
Well, apparently, if you are level 1 through 4, and again, I just read this on the internet, so it has to be true. But if you're level 1 through 4 in Magic Arena, it will do a calculation to guarantee it'll get 2 opening hands, two 7-card hands, and it will give you the one that has the better land to spell ratio. So you can essentially be guaranteed to have a good game of Magic. And after you get to level 4 and beyond, that no longer happens. So only sort of the beginner, they give you a little bit of training wheels in terms of your opening hands just to kind of get you going. At least that's the way I interpret it, is that they want you to have a good experience and not get mana screwed, mana flooded, or whatever when you're trying to just learn the game. When you're on level 0, just starting out.
Okay.
Right. So I can see that happening. This is very similar to so people who don't think that for example racing games slow down and speed up to give you a certain feel, whatnot. That happens all the time. Like that stuff. Yeah. They give you little legs up. So that to me is not a big deal. I just want them. I would definitely want them to be upfront about it. This is what we're doing. This is how it works.
And another thing that I really appreciate about this article from Lucas and all the other Magic Arena articles, and I'll pull this quote directly from Lucas's here, which is that Wizards of the Coast is listening. I've seen nothing but positive feedback from them about how to improve the game. And then he includes a quote from an MTG Arena producer named Giant. Anticipate more communication in the forums and expectation setting around economy changes as we move forward with each release. We'll be better about letting you all know what we've intended so you can continue to give us your best honest feedback about how the game feels. That's great to hear from a arena producer. So, as we have these complaints, as we talk about, maybe grinding is taking a little bit too much, like it's too much of a grind, or it's not enough of a grind, or it's grinding in the wrong way, then the producers of MTG Arena are listening and accepting of the feedback.
Yeah, and we hope it. And again, it's so weird to me. I still can't wrap my head around the idea that they're soon going to let you buy gems or whatever it is from the store, and later give you the money back. That's weird.
That is weird.
It's like the greatest 2% loan of all time, because you still have to pay the credit card fees and stuff and whatever.
I'm totally money laundering all of my ill-gotten dollars through MTG Arena. That's what I'm gonna do.
I mean, I'm buying 100,000 gems, y'all. Can't stop me. Doing it.
And then getting them all back in 6 months or whatever.
Exactly. So there was a really fascinating article on Medium posted about the MTG Color Wheel, and essentially putting the Color Wheel through the realm of human emotion and human their goals and what they want to do, and how the colors sort of lead to that, and I'll bring it up here on the screen. No, I won't, because I don't have it ready because I'm an idiot. But this Medium article,
professionalism.
I know, right? This Medium article talks about, for example, if you're white, you're about peace. You know, if you're blue, you're about perfection through knowledge. White is about peace through order. Black is about satisfaction through ruthlessness. This is the, you know, I don't care about ghosting. You know, if you're mono black, that's you're totally on that train. You don't even understand why you wouldn't do that.
I take offense to that as a black mage. I would never do that. But maybe I'm more rakdos, or maybe I've drifted into.
So you're just not mono black. Is
I
the
guess.
thing.
Maybe I'm more Golgari after
You're splashing something is the point.
Right. You're splashing something. It's cool. But the idea, essentially, that you can help... and he gives an example in the article of, like, if you were to essentially map people you know based on this MTG Color Pie thing and how, you know, the pairs work together in a different way. Like blue-white is for structure and green-white is for community. Red and black is for independence, for example. And I thought it was really cool because he said, well, one of his friends was very depressed. And, you know, his friends were trying to, you know, have him exercise every day and have him go to sleep at a certain time and, you know, come visit him and have certain things they would do with him each and every week. And he realized, he's like, look, what we're doing is very white, you know, very structured, very, very ornate. You know, they're like, let's do this on this time, every single time, blah, blah, blah. And that was essentially killing him because he didn't like it. What he liked was to be spontaneous. His friend was red. His friend was a red mana person, therefore they liked being spontaneous. They liked, you know, like having something happen that they didn't know what was going to happen. So he's like, well, I just pulled up my friend's house and said, come on, get in. And it's like, whoa, what are we doing? He's like, let's go. Let's go somewhere. And he had a really good day with him, and that really helped him in ways that trying to get this structure and trying to treat him in a different manner, you know, it wasn't working. And I thought this was just fascinating. The whole article is great. It's super long because it goes into literally examples of fictional characters and what their colors they would be and stuff. And it goes through all, even the tricolor, all the shards and the wedges and all that stuff. And so it's quite extensive if you want to jump in and dive in. But needless to say, it was awesome.
I love things like this.
If you've ever done your Myers-Briggs personality test, that is basically a 4x4 grid giving you 16 possible combinations. For this, you have 5 primary colors, 10 guilds, and 10 three-color pairs with which you can combine, and so there's 9 more options of the Myers-Briggs layout. But yeah, it's a fascinating article, and they did a really good job putting it together as sort of a mental exercise.
We've seen other examples of this too. Morrow, he did a Drive to Work series with all the colors where he sort of broke down, you might be this color if you do X. And I really related to the black episode specifically. And going back to Mike Linneman, he did an article on Gathering Magic years ago that was talking about the color pie in love. And it was this whole sort of satirical piece about if you are green, what is it like to be in a relationship with someone who identifies as a green mage? And what is it like to be in a relationship with somebody who identifies as a red mage? And I thought that was really, really good. I still have that article bookmarked, and I still read that one from time to time.
All right, so we're gonna move on to some splash damage, where we're not necessarily talking about magic, but we're talking about something that relates to magic. Could we stop having people randomly throw out racial slurs every single week of our life? Could you just stop, just like for 5 seconds? Could you just please?
Oh my god,
dude! Another news story came out about a Twitch stream. Like I was no joke. I googled Twitch racial slur, and 4 different news stories popped up from the past 2 weeks.
So there is a Counter-Strike commentator who goes by the name of Sudokus. His name is Matthew Trivett, and Matthew had a birthday stream the other day, and he got intoxicated on his birthday stream, proceeded to drop the N-word, and then told somebody in his chat that they should go kill themselves or something to that effect. And then a few days later, he published an apology on his Facebook page that is 1,260 words long. I put that in a word count. That's how long this is. And then 3/4 of the way through his apology, he brings up his dog. And I quote, "Before I leave home every day, the last words I say to my dog are, 'You be a good girl.' Who am I to have not upheld my end of the bargain?" What? This isn't your apology. Like, what? I can't.
I told my dog, you don't do those racial slurs, okay? You listen, you hear, buddy? God. No more racial slurs, okay? But who am I to not keep up that end of the bargain, y'all? I mean,
Wow.
you know, I just ask my dog every day to do that. I don't know.
And then today, there was a young man in the Overwatch League who just received a 3-game suspension, had his streaming privileges revoked, and is being fined thousands of dollars because he made the slant eye gesture when he was on stream. Somebody had made a comment about him being Korean, like he was really good at a game, and then he goes, "I am Korean," and then puts his eyes sideways. Like, what?
How stupid do you have to be?
Oh my god! And it feels like every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's so it seems to be more prevalent in streaming culture for sure, or in gaming culture, I should say. Sure. For this sort of lack of self-awareness as to the power of words. But as Patrick Chapin is fond of saying, words mean things. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a landmark case in South Africa where a woman was imprisoned for 3 years for a racist tirade she went on. Pretty much only for, I mean, it was a lot. You have to do a lot of racism to go to jail for racism. And boy, did she. Like, she had her car broken into. 2 police officers show up. Obviously, this is a white woman. I didn't feel like I had to point that out. But white woman has her car broken into. 2 black police officers show up. And she hurls a so it's a racial slur in South Africa that I'm unfamiliar with as being a racial slur, but I'm going to not repeat what the word is. She says it 48 times to these cops. It's like all on video. And like, you know, if I got my car broken into and I were a racist and the people I was racist against showed up, I could be forgiven like 10, right? But 48, like, you gotta go pretty racist to do like a lot of those. It's like if they hurled the N-word 48 times at cops that showed up. And you don't just get to be racist against cops, and especially if it's all on camera. And so this woman's gone to jail for 3 years for being racist. So you either get your Twitch account suspended for a while, or you get fired, or whatever. This is man, I don't know. People just forgot that words meant things, I guess, and it's tough.
The thing that's so fascinating to me about the esports guys is that they get media training. Like the big time teams have people who prep them for interviews and teach them about branding, and so there's got to be some disconnect there. Like, I don't know if the training is just not adequate or if there's no follow through. Like, I think somebody in our Discord had mentioned that training is nothing if there's no after your training wheels come off, someone's still pushing you on the bike, and so it's, if you're being trained but no one's checking up on you to make sure that training is working. Or even when I worked at Chase, when I had a corporate job, we would have to re-up our training every 6 months. And so, the training means nothing if it's, number one, not very good, and number two, if no one's following up with you to keep you afloat. And so I really do wonder, if these guys are just not getting the service they need, because they clearly need this. These are young guys and girls who are being put out in a public sphere with hundreds of thousands of followers. No one teaches you how to be, there's no guidebook on how to be visible or how to be famous. And so this is a service that these players obviously need. And if they're getting it, it's not good enough. It's not working. Someone needs to step that up a bit. Or if they're not getting any, they need to start getting some. Because I feel like every day there's a new story of some 20-year-old not realizing they're on stream, and suddenly, you're rapping along to a song and N-words are coming out. And it's like, you can't do that. Like,
this is another reason for, especially for these big streamers, is to get a delay. I mean, if you got a mod and you've got, 10,000 people watching you, I mean, I don't know what the minimum bar is, but let's pretend it's broadcast television, get a 6-second delay and get a bleep button, right? Like, you accidentally drop a word, at least it's bleeped, right? So,
well, there was an interesting sort of corollary to the video game culture, and particularly the fighting game culture, the fighting game sort of a tournament series, kind of community there.
Was that the 48 tweet thread that Kibler shared?
It's the 48 tweet thread.
I gave up after the 5th tweet.
It's fine. It gets there. There's a few things that basically happen. Basically,
like we said with the racist woman, 48's a lot. You gotta screw it.
At that point, you can go start a Tumblr, go start a blog. I ain't reading a 48 tweet thread. I'm not doing it.
Luckily, you can boil it down
Too long dice roll.
Too long dice roll, y'all. Well, essentially, the fighting game community was dying for a long time. And then Street Fighter 4 was announced, and that was a huge, sort of wind in the sails to get people really excited about it again. And the person who was doing most of the technical work for the fighting game community to stream these events, when it got sort of popular again, and then people started running around, saying all crazy stuff like, I raped my opponent and stuff like that. It's all ridiculous.
Yeah.
Basically, he put his foot down. He said, look, if you do this crap, I'm not going to help stream your stuff. And turns out that all that behavior changed immediately. And no one says that stupid crap, and they fixed that problem because the people who are in charge have the power over that community, or they're providing something for that community that they found very, very valuable, said, look, this is not okay. And he could have very well done the exact opposite, which is totally okay with that. Let's do it. Rape everybody. Woo. Not necessary. Like he said, this is the line, and if you're going to cross it, I'm not going to be a part of this anymore. And so it's a good example of you can take a stand, you can stop this type of stuff, if you want to. But it takes someone standing up to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as it pertains to, this is a totally different. This is a different branch of the argument of how do we fix what we have. I had a long conversation with Beej, Das Beej, who's one of the folks who works for WotC on coverage, and I talked with Dix, who's one of our mods, and he's one of the mods in all of Magic. No one to me is more of like a lawful good paladin in the Magic world than Dix. The moderator
he does
for Magic.
play Infect, or so I hear, but
dude, he is like actual soldier protecting us, and also a moderator in I can't think of anybody I'd rather be at be my dauntless bodyguard in front of me. Anyway, my point is, we had a lot of people.
He's also fabulous.
Yeah, we had a lot of conversation about what do we do with our Magic Twitch chat, and it's very similar to policing this this side of the gaming culture as well, which is you have to you can't just say it. You can't just be like, please don't do this thing. You can't just time people out, and because they're gonna make new accounts, they're going to use new whatever, they're going to hide behind different IP addresses. You have to figure out what else can we do, auto mod or ban IP addresses and stuff like that. You have to take an additional step, and so I'm hoping that Magic, who has always been on the forefront of stuff like that, who has always been the first to put people of color and different racial and types of backgrounds into their game. We've always been on the forefront of that kind of stuff and being accepting and welcoming all types of wizards into our world. So how do we actively pursue that without just saying it? It's always this one of my big gripes against J.K. Rowling, which I love the Harry Potter books, but it's a big gripe of mine against J.K. Rowling is, Dumbledore's gay, and this character was Jewish, and this character, was this or that, and then it never gets put into anything official. Like it's okay to say that Dumbledore's gay outside of the movies, but then in the movie they just shy away from it and don't reference it. Like, you have to actively pursue what you are arguing in favor of. And I know that that's a bit of a false equivalency, but it's what came to mind in my head, and I hope it makes a little bit of sense.
Well, the first thing I thought of, and it's something you had kind of touched on, Ruben, is that I think the way that you start dealing with this is by making accounts more difficult to create. There's a reason why when you see stories of brigading and extreme harassment, that it tends to happen on the sites where it's so easy to make an account. Twitter. How many times have you seen somebody getting harassed by these accounts with zero followers, zero following? It's the ease at which you can make accounts. I know people who've been suspended at least once or twice that are back again with new accounts, and so there's a reason why these sites tend to be these homes for most of the problems. And so you can start by making accounts more difficult to create, number one, where if you do get a ban, that ban means something because you're going to have to go through a lot of trouble to come back on another account. I think that's where you start. I think another step is that you treat moderation like an essential service. When you're staffing a GP or you're staffing a Pro Tour, you make sure that there are judges, you make sure that there are concession stands. Those are things that an event would not run without. And I think part of the problem is that moderation is treated like a privilege, or it's treated like an accessory where, if we have mods, it's fine. But no, this also needs to be an essential service. And if you don't have mods, you don't go live. Like, they need to be as important as judges, as important as a concession stand, as important as security. And until you treat it as such, that's, I think, where a lot of problems lie, is that you treat it as one of those things where if we have a mod, great. If not, oh well. No, you don't go live unless you have a moderation staff ready and raring to go. All
right, so we're going to move on here. It'll be a little bit, a little bit shorter show this evening.
Sure.
But it was a little bit of a light week, and again, we're trying to save a little bit for the set review.
Right. Usually we would pack this episode full of like spoiler discussion and official previews, but we're trying to save that for our big shindig that y'all helped pay for. So
absolutely. So first up is our giveaway winner, which is Joe P. from Auburn, Washington. So
nice. Oh, well, there you go. Auburn. If he's going to be at, let's see if he's going to be at the GP. Because it's in Washington, so
it is. I have no idea if they actually have the dual decks with them. The Cool Stuff guys are going to GP Seattle. Don't know if he's able to make GP Seattle 1 and do if we would have a copy there to give him to him. But I'd be happy to mail him one. Joe P, get in touch with us on Twitter via Twitch message.
That's so
something.
lucky because the GP is in Seattle.
I know, isn't that crazy? Well, I'll take it. So congrats to Joe P. That's awesome, and that means we get to turn the corner to the finisher. This weekend is the Double Grand Prix in Seattle in the homestead of Magic the Gathering. Joining the fray will be many Magic folks, and one such attendee will be our own Mox Ruby, spell slinging tomorrow and Friday. So since he's in Vancouver's Tijuana for the week, what should he do? What should he be sure to do while he's in the Emerald City? Aaron?
Well, seeing as this is the closest he'll be for the foreseeable future, he definitely should head to his homeland of Idaho, because just like Ruben, it has very little to offer except potatoes as far as the eye can see.
Apparently, I had some potatoes to offer this episode.
In the pre-show,
well.
if you guys qualify for the pre-show, his taters have evolved. It's fascinating.
It's new taters. It's all new. It's just like Jurassic World.
Strain, yeah.
They made a bigger monster
head over here. Yeah.
The taters are different now. We're a tater of the next generation. Okay. Absolutely, we are Dark Tater returns. Okay, so Ruben, tell me.
I can't even. All right. Well, while I'm here, I've already seen the Pike Place Market and the Seattle Aquarium, and as you can see, I also visited WotC HQ. Awesome hat, Born Lucky shirt. Check that out. So the last thing that I need to, I'm almost there, but the last thing that I need to do before I become 100% townie and the locals truly accept me as one of their own is to get rid of my current cynical sense of humor, because in Seattle, it's never dry.
Hello.
Wow. Wow.
My humor is so dry it chafes, Evan.
Oh my God. I need some Gold Bond for your humor.
Right.
Perfect. Well, I think Ruben should make a special visit to the waterfront for one of his spell-slinging matches, because you're not truly in there until you become an actual wizard of the coast.
Oh no, don't leave us, Ruben.
Oh no.
Go down to the coast.
This will turn into the GAM podcast where they keep losing everybody to wizards.
Yeah. I'll just walk into the Puget Sound like I'm Jason Momoa going back to the depths.
Well, that ends another episode of Magic Mics. Thank you for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you.
All right, move here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHolder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMics. Visit our website at MagicMicsPodcast.com. That exists thanks to our Patreon supporters. Or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv/MagicMics, on Twitter at MagicMicsCast, on Reddit at Reddit.com/r/MagicMics, on Facebook at Facebook.com/MagicMics. Talk to us privately at MagicMicsPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMicsPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.